world of work.
The world of work.
The opportunity for men and women to put their skills to work in satisfying careers contributes to the quality of life for all people.
The dignity of work has always been part of the American story.
Classrooms that connect learning with real work experiences
give students the opportunity to explore vibrant career fields
and define areas of interest in which they can make an impact in the real world.
In the real world.
In the real world.
You want to feel like you've made a difference. I think that's a fundamental human need.
In a working class, history provides clues for solving present-day challenges.
Math explains the mystery behind technology.
We need individuals with strong math and science skills. We need individuals that can operate in a team. And we need individuals with technical skills.
And lessons in communication.
And help us to work together to build rich and rewarding lives.
Rich and rewarding lives.
Rich and rewarding lives.
People who make things are necessary.
Students and faculty
find passion and purpose
where real lives intersect.
Where real lives intersect.
In a real working class.
In a real working class.
Working class.
Working class.
Working class.
Working class.
Every single thing you do makes an impact on the environment.
If I do this, what is going to be the outcome of this? If I design this product, is it going to benefit everybody, or is there going to be some negative outcome? If we build this community here, what's it going to do to the community next to it?
I think you need to keep your feet in the natural world. It's important to understand the world around you and how things work and your place in it.
It's not wilderness, it's nature. And I think all children are intrigued by this idea of otherness and, other kingdoms, other fairies, other beings. As a child you feel estranged from the world of adults, so it's more natural to feel simpatico with every other living thing, and then that's a quality that either gets strengthened in you or pruned out. Children have the innate awareness of what's just and what's unjust. And the best thing that we can give young people is just the reminder there is glory and honor when the cause is great in protecting what you love. And that is the measure of who you are as a person, to work for a thing that you love.
We are all curious about our place in the world. Nature allows us to explore our connections to all living things. How can we use our curiosity to create a greater understanding of the earth? How can we preserve nature while using its resources to power systems that keep us comfortable and secure? How can our choice of career make a real difference for the future? Join us as we go green and explore careers that protect our planet in this episode of Working Class, Build and Grow Green.
I used to live on a street called Meadowview Street, but there wasn't any meadow anywhere near it. So I've made up the story about a kid who changes her street to make it sound more like the name of the street. And it's one kid making a difference. I grew up on a dairy farm in Virginia. We had a woods on the farm that was like this enchanted forest. It was just such a great environment for exploration and discovery. My biggest fear for today's kids is that there just seems to be less and less of an opportunity for them to be outside, and so there's less of a connection with kids and the environment outside. And that's why this place, Longwood Gardens, oh my gosh, special, special place.
My first visit to Longwood Gardens, I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. My grandmother brought me on a road trip, and she takes most of the credit for my horticulture career. I started as a conservatory gardener in the orangery, which is one of the earliest buildings that Pierre DuPont built when he was creating Longwood Gardens. When you walk in, you forget everything you left outside of Longwood. It's magical. The green wall here at Longwood Gardens is one of our newest additions to the conservatory space. All the plants are in panels. They're slid into place and they grow in the wall. There is an irrigation system worked throughout, and it is set up so that the areas that get the most sun are the areas that are going to be getting the most water. So really it is conserving water by only watering what's needed.
My favorite place at Longwood Gardens is the Flower Garden Walk. One of the interesting things about how Mr. DuPont designed the Flower Garden Walk is that it's designed like this, so that when you're in this end of the border, you can only see as far as the circular fountain, and you cannot see the other side. So when you get to the fountain, it's like a surprise. 2 years ago, we renovated the theater garden, which is close to the Flower Garden Walk. We completely revamped it, took out most of the plants, took out almost all of the soil, and put in a new dry garden. Dry gardens are becoming more and more popular. Rather than plant lawns or trees that need a lot of water, people are starting to think a little more sustainably and plant plants that don't need a lot of water. Art and science at Longwood goes hand in hand. They're constantly trying to figure out how to grow something better. I think anybody who has a keen interest in science would be interested in horticulture.
When you're in school and you're taking all these classes that maybe you don't think are all that relevant, English, math, when am I going to use this? I've said that, we've all said that. But now that I'm here at Longwood Gardens, I find all these things are coming into play on a fairly regular basis. You think you're going to be a gardener and you're just going to be digging in the dirt and pruning things and using a shovel all day. But really, when it comes down to it, you're communicating with others and sharing your passion with the world.
Green jobs are those that consider the future of our planet. They may involve creating products and marketing services that promote energy efficiency. Green jobs also encourage the sustainable use of our resources, and they help to clean up our environment and prevent pollution. Opportunities for employment exist in many career fields that encourage environmental protection and wise use of natural resources. Green careers may be practiced outdoors, in fields such as horticulture and forestry, as well as inside large urban structures that benefit from sustainable design, building automation, and power generation technologies. Green jobs are practical, sustainable options for those seeking success in the 21st century.
Millennials are really focused on sustainability issues. They're very much aware of these issues. They've grown up with more of a focus on learning about the environment and recognizing that human beings are just one piece of an ecosystem.
Weighing convenience and conservation is a major problem. Do I really need this? Where did it come from? How much do I need?
To me, the most important thing about being in college is learning to ask questions. The world's a complex place, and when you work with people, you need to have an understanding of who everybody is and where they're coming from, and a sense of place, a sense of history, a sense of the interconnectedness of things.
Here in Pennsylvania, we had the big coal boom. We also have oil, and now the Marcellus Shale. We also had the big forestry, timber. And I think we've learned a lot from the past mistakes. We learned that if you just leave coal mines and abandon them, you're going to wind up with acid mine drainage, which destroys everything. And we learned that we need to have trees and don't strip everything down all the way. Aldo Leopold, John Muir, Teddy Roosevelt were the first environmentals that looked at nature and said, we got to preserve, but we also have to use.
The history of forestry in America is linked to the creation of America and industry. There was no forestry to begin with. The settlers just cleared what they needed, and then timber barons cleared what they needed. And at one point, Pennsylvania was completely clear-cut with a few exceptions here and there. So there was no look at the future, there was only a look at now. It wasn't really forestry, it was timber extraction. And what went wrong was described by Gifford Pinchot. He said that the state of Pennsylvania was a vast wasteland of destroyed forest with wildfires burning out of control. That creates kind of a epic type of scene in my mind as to what the devastation was to the environment. There has been forever in America this two-way street. One side is preservation and the other side is conservation. Foresters are always trying to mesh those two together. And the classic example of that is Gifford Pinchot for conservation and John Muir for preservation. John Muir thought that certain areas, certain forests should never be touched. They should be left to grow wild, to be there forever for humanity. Gifford Pinchot said, no, we need wise use. We need to be able to maintain these forests. We need to utilize the resource. Foresters are always trying to mesh those two together. Even though my background is heavily into harvesting and regeneration and the manipulation of the resource, I still hug trees. What most small forest owners might not know is the value, the monetary value of their stands. Or they might not know the species composition or the history of their stands. Pennsylvania used to be predominantly conifer forest with eastern white pine and eastern hemlock as being the primary trees. Now the entire state is almost all oak, hickory, and maple. So there's been a huge change.
I'm somewhat fascinated with the way things used to be and the way things used to be done. I would have liked to have seen what the forests were like back in the 1800s, and a lot of it back then was just, if it was a tree, it got cut down. Now we look at species, we look at health, We look at markets and viability. We're one of the world's leading hardwood producers, just Pennsylvania. And a lot of our logs, they never see the inside of a mill here in Pennsylvania. So the global economy, or understanding the economics of that and the prices and just availability and how things fluctuate is critical. Timber as a crop, or looking at it in that way, it's really not a whole lot different than growing corn or any other crop that you would harvest on a yearly basis, except we extend our harvest out to 80 or 90 years on a rotation. But during that time, you have to tend what's there. If you want sustainability and you want healthy forests, saving everything is not the best way to go. You always have to take out something to allow something else to take its place. Trees are great, but there's a time when they're economically or biologically mature, and you have the option at that point, if all other conditions are right, to regenerate. And if that's possible, then doing that is the right thing to do, because you're then putting more trees in that space of one and giving more a better environment to grow in and a better chance to become mature themselves.
When I go into, especially a planted forest plantation, I know probably planted by the Civilian Conservation Corps. So people back in a very difficult economic time, working for the government, went out in the woods of Pennsylvania and planted these trees, which we are now seeing at maturity and are able to harvest. Without those plantings, we wouldn't have some of the species that we're using today. Its short-term goal was to employ people, and its long-term goal is outstanding. We now have these resources that were planted and created that we're using today and will use into the future.
Weighing convenience and conservation is a major problem, and every single thing you do makes an impact on the environment.
But you can kind of see the difference in the body styles.
I think it's important that students understand the history of what's happened in our environment. Today, the focus is on what we have now, and it's important to understand that this grew out of the bad things that have happened in the past. As a child, I was inspired by nature because we lived on a large tract of land which had a forest, it had fields, it has a swamp, so I got to go and play with all these things. My thinking about the environment changed radically when I moved to Philadelphia, and I taught at South Philadelphia High School, which was only about 15 blocks away from major oil refineries, the airport, plus cars were still using leaded gasoline at that time, so air quality in the city was pretty bad. It was radically different than beautiful north central Pennsylvania.
A forester looks at all the trees. An arborist looks at all the trees, but he looks at one at a time and take the care to care for individual trees. We don't want to kill them, because that's our future. That's, coming back and taking care of them. But at the same time, you have to recognize when the tree's outlived its potential. This is the first day that the students have climbed, so yeah, it was a little bit clumsy and they were having some tough times, but as the semester goes on, they'll work through that and to begin to get real comfortable, because in that industry, that's your workstation. It's 40, 50 feet off the ground. So if you're going to, complete your work efficiently, it comes first that you have to learn how to climb. Well, I grew up in the tree care industry. My father had a business that he and his brother started right out of high school. They went to Waynesboro Technical Institute and took agriculture. And they learned about this through that. And they actually used to get on the city bus with a crosscut saw. And in the position that I'm in, I may not be out there working with the largest organisms on the planet. That's the great thing about being a tree care person. But I'm sending people out that are doing that. And that just means the world to me.
One of the myths about green building is that, well, it costs too much. The reason it's a myth is because you end up saving energy because you made your building more energy efficient.
In the Southwest, where I grew up, I saw some examples of cave dwellings where they were oriented to the sun. Some of the things that were done hundreds of years ago were more sustainable than had been done in the last 100 years. Before there were mechanical systems, people had to rely on the use of the sun and their relationship with the sun to keep their environments, their buildings, relatively warm. Back in like the 1960s and early 70s, people had kind of forgotten all about that sort of thing. And they were designing buildings with total disregard for how much energy would be required to keep them comfortable. And so you had these big, tall glass skyscrapers, which had really no insulated value whatsoever, but they could be kept comfortable with very large mechanical systems. Once we had the energy crisis in the 70s, people started realizing we need to be more energy efficient with what we're doing. And so they started to create more energy efficient buildings using insulation in the building envelope and also orienting the building to the sun. There is a relatively recent standard called the Passive House Standard. And we have software that we can kind of simulate our designs and we can determine whether or not we are able to kind of meet that standard. The Department of Energy has a competition which is referred to as the Race to Zero competition, and they're talking about zero being zero energy.
The students have been part of the competition the past 2 years, and the last year's competition, the students worked with Habitat for Humanity. The judges really were so impressed. The students had seriously addressed all of the aspects about the livability, about the performance of the home, and about the cost of the home. They were chosen as the grand winner of that group. The competition this year, they're working with Family Promise, which is a group that keeps homeless families together. They were one of 32 teams that were picked.
My name is Sean Mayberry. I'm a senior in the Building Construction Management program. My minor is Sustainable Design. Our project this semester was to take a house that was roughly 100 years old and convert it based on Passive House standards. The house as it was currently built was not airtight at all. The energy bills were quite substantial. Today we're looking at light studies based off of our SketchUp model. We're looking at how the sunshine is going to shine through our windows, how much solar gains we're going to get inside the building.
The students this year, they go out to Colorado, to Golden, Colorado, just outside of Denver, to present. These students are taking a house and they're making it so that it's going to be really a great energy efficient house for the next 100 years.
Eventually, I'd like to get into green building. I think that's the nature of the construction industry and the nature of architecture in the future. I hope it's going to make a difference for the future, to leave this world in a better place for the next generation.
We inherit a world built by previous generations. We often live and work in facilities made before present-day efficiencies were even imagined. It simply is not feasible to tear down everything that exists in order to replace it with an improved model. So retrofitting or modifying existing buildings often is the most efficient use of our resources, including money and time. In 1985, the U.S. Department of Energy funded the creation of a training center in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, to support home energy conservation. The center became a national model, training more than 10,000 individuals to provide home energy conservation assistance to low-income clients throughout a 6-state region. For more than 30 years, the center, known today as the National Sustainable Structures Center, a U.S. Department of Energy Legacy Weatherization Training Center, has been a leader implementing building science and energy conservation standards to make homes more energy efficient. The center was founded and continues to operate from the campus of Pennsylvania College of Technology.
The college received a grant from Pennsylvania Department of Community Affairs to set up a training center to train crews that would go out and insulate, put storm windows, caulkings, weather strippings on low-income and elderly people's homes throughout the state of Pennsylvania. To that point, there was really no training for these people at all.
So up here at the Weatherization Training Center at Penn College, we were training agencies in every county of the state to have the skills to be able to examine houses, to do the tests to determine where should this public money go. Should it go into the building shell improvement or into the mechanical system improvement? And then how can we get the most bang for our buck? The weatherization program had two sides. One is the building shell. Well, we were very interested in improving that so that less heat is lost from a building in the winter and less heat is gained into the building in the summer by tightening it up, less air leaks, and by increasing the overall insulation value in the house so that it's tighter without jeopardizing the air quality in the house. And the other side of that is improving the efficiency of the heating system, which the weatherization program got into both sides of that.
I've been an advocate of insulating homes for years, even before I came to weatherization. Anything we can do to conserve heat is good for the environment. For the day-to-day builder, we don't oftentimes call it green, we call it just good business. People need warm homes, they need cool homes, they need safe homes, not only from the elements, but from medical conditions. You don't have to go very far to hear of lead paint, asbestos. And now I think builders are more attuned to not putting products in that we know might be harmful. It just makes good business sense. When I started in this business almost 40 years ago, there were actually builders that used to sheet walls and floors and roofs with 1x boards. Then we went to plywood, and from plywood we went to the oriented strand, the OSB boards. Those types of composite materials that use virtually all of the tree. I think of one of the biggest green type things that we've come up with. Somebody can design some of those components to do what no tree would do. we're trying to meet that energy efficiency code. And we're trying to find products that are not as detrimental to our environment, both in their manufacture and in what happens to them later.
The green movement, I think, has made us become much more aware of not only the nuts and bolts of how things go together, but the long-term effects of the materials and the procedures and methods that we're using to build things. The good part about construction management as far as taking care of the environment is we're the orchestra leader of the construction project. So what better position to have than the one that's actually going to be managing all of the resources, making sure that the subcontractors, contractors are doing things the right way and not wrecking the environment by just cutting corners. Our students are being trained to manage everything from multiple residential developments, which would be some of the larger national level contractors maybe, through building commercial buildings, schools, hospitals, apartment buildings, those type of things. We're also doing infrastructure projects. We are responsible for making sure that we're building things efficiently and that we're doing things the right way so that we're not harming the environment and that we're using the proper resources the right way and we're not allowing things to be dumped into drains when we're constructing something, making sure that we're doing the precautions and the planning so that we're not affecting the environment negatively. And because I want my kids and grandkids to be able to enjoy the same things I did, and if we don't take care of our resources, they're not going to be there.
Conserving energy is I think, as green as anything because you're not wasting it. We only have so many resources here on planet Earth, and that we have to conserve how we use it and manage it. So my father was always telling me to turn the lights off, you know, why don't you leave the basement light on, you know. So, but now we have technology to turn that light on and off, and it really, over time it saves money and it saves you energy, and it saves wear and tear on equipment. We're sitting in a lab where we have a lot of stations where we teach power generation and electromagnetic transformation of power. To generate electricity, you need three things. You need a conductor, you need a magnetic field, and you need movement between the two to induce voltage into the conductor. And so that's what a generator is. It needs something to move it, a prime mover. In the case that we study here, the prime mover is the diesel engine. And that turns the generator, which turns the conductors in the magnetic field and induces voltage, and that's what comes out your receptacle or any place that we plug into it. If I leave my charger plugged in for a month when I'm not in my shop using it, it's still electrical charging, and that's good. Next time I go to use it, it'll be there. But if I calculate how much it takes, utility energy, to do that over a month or two, it's significant. And if, you know, 100,000 people do that in this county over a month, that's a lot of energy.
Technology may not be the first word that comes to mind when considering green careers. But advancing technologies conserve resources while providing the comfort and convenience that we've come to expect in a modern world. Environmental controls in our homes and throughout our communities are designed and maintained by professionals who understand the importance of protecting resources for the future while providing the products and services that today's society demands.
In 1953, Honeywell, they came out with the Honeywell yo-yo thermostat. I was born in that year. They still make the Honeywell yo-yo. It doesn't have the mercury inside of it anymore. It's digital, but it still has the Honeywell yo-yo look, and it's still out there. The technology's changing so that it is more energy efficient. Back in my day, I worked on 60 and 70% efficient furnaces. 60 cents of your dollars heat went into the house and 40 cents went out the chimney. Look what we're working on today. Look what we're learning to install. These are 95% efficient furnaces. 95 cents of every dollar that you spend on fuel heats the house. 5 cents goes out the vent. It's more efficient. I hated school. I hated it from when I was a little kid. After high school, I had a couple of jobs. Working in a factory was good pay. It was good benefits. And I was in production, so I'd either get bumped from first shift to second shift to third shift to out the door. You know, after a while, you were out longer than you were in. At the photo flash plant, upstairs was all production, and that's predominantly where I worked. Downstairs was all the tradespeople. I noticed that every time we had an upswing or a downswing, they never got laid off. I saw the plumbers and the HVAC guys, and I thought, that's what I want to do. I can do that, I like that. And that started my journey, it really did. Find what turns you on. Okay, and what you get excited about, because can you imagine working 45 years hating what you do? 45 years of hating it before you can retire? Find something you like and go after it.
Higher efficiency equipment, controlled in a way that reduces costs, is helpful to everybody. And of course, it also preserves resources and produces less pollution.
The refrigerant side really impacted the industry because of CFCs, HCFCs, damaging the environment and the ozone layer. CFCs are chlorofluorocarbons, basically, which were the old refrigerants they used back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, all the way up to 10, 15 years ago. But the chlorine molecule actually harmed the environment, so they switched over to more refrigerants, or refrigerants that were more environmentally friendly. So that's really driven the industry to change its ways, so to speak. I actually go through a whole history lesson actually in the refrigeration industry to make sure that they are aware of why we have it, where it came from. The whole purpose originally was to preserve food. People, you know, you could only eat certain foods during certain times of the year because you couldn't preserve them for long-term use. I think if you don't understand, you know, the full breadth of where it came from, you're really not going to see, you know, the whole future and, you know, what's the next best step in this industry.
Deciding what to do for a living is one of life's most important choices. We may care deeply about something, but can we earn a decent wage if we pursue a career that follows our passion? Passion for the environment can lead to successful employment if we learn how to apply our knowledge of science, mathematics, and the humanities to real workplace needs. Energy efficiency is a key to success in the design, construction, and maintenance of facilities and systems around the world. Individuals who understand how systems work and are able to make improvements that will help them work even better in the future will be in high demand throughout the workforce.
As a kid, I didn't think about heating and air conditioning, which is now my profession, at all. I remember walking by in the basement of my house past this metal box. I had no idea what it did. I totally ignored it. But now I could tell you all about it. We are sitting here in our solar thermal lab at Penn College, and my students are renewable energy and HVAC students that want to learn about how we use solar energy for heating. They're working in groups to install collectors. In a few weeks, they'll turn on their pumps and they'll try out their controls to see how the system works. Going forward, I see longer range, that we're going to see more renewable energies, especially solar, being used. I think there's going to be a breakthrough in solar technology so that we can paint our houses, we can put roofs on our houses that are both attractive and solar collectors. You can even read about window coatings that you can still see through, but also are collecting energy. It's amazing. We look outside, all the green plants, they're doing it. We are bathed in enough solar energy every day to meet all our energy needs. It's a matter of how do we collect it and how do we use it.
In the 101, Renewable 101 class for the first year students, we took my electric bill and we priced energy, electricity, and from the different suppliers. In Pennsylvania, it's called alternate energy portfolio. In other states, it's called renewable energy portfolio. You have to have so much renewable energy in your makeup of electricity that you supply to your customers. So much has to be alternate energy. The beauty of solar is everybody can do it. Everybody has a roof. Everybody has, a space that they're going to live under the sun in, right? And you can put this system in and get it to work and save you some dollars. The building automation is about energy. I call it the greenest program on campus because it's about saving energy.
Most homeowners today will buy programmable thermostats because they've learned that, hey, while you're not home during the day, I can relax my temperature. Why heat the house at 72 when you're not home? Automatically, when you arrive home or an hour before, your temperature's back up. We control buildings. From the point that a person comes in that building, we take control of it. We know who just came in that building. We control lights. We have control of the elevators, and we control the HVAC equipment. There's nothing that electrically in that building that we do not have control of. "90% of my students will end up as field engineers, and they're going to enter any kind of commercial buildings, and they're going to hook up their laptop to the network, and they're going to begin checking out point by point every sensor that's on that piece of equipment. It's ultimately their job to make sure everything is functioning right.
This is the original green industry. Everyone talks about going green, but we really are the original green industry. We're all about plants. Look outside. Imagine no trees, no grass, no plants. What's it look like? I'm a gardener at heart. When I mention my garden at home, it's not my vegetable garden, it's the whole yard. And even my young boys, are, they're 7 and 9, they have come to realize that the garden is everything. For kids, you have to choose plants that are going to grow quick, and they can see. You can say they don't have that patience. We don't have that patience in many ways. We want to see things. Actually, I started to do some bonsai because I wanted to learn a little patience. And realize that things don't happen immediately. It's going to happen in its own time. We can change it a little bit. We can only do so much. Plants are becoming more functional. I mean, they're still aesthetic, but hey, these are desirable plants because they offer more than just they're pretty. They're helpful for the environment, or maybe there are stormwater management benefits to those plants. Stormwater is a big part of what we do. That's something that government regulations especially are dictating that we need to have rain gardens or bioswales, or some places they want green roofs, and that water that comes off your property, it has to stay on your property. You can't go someplace else. There was a time when it all went down the drain, it was out of sight, out of mind. That all goes someplace. And so whether it's permeable pavers or those plants that are native plants that you can put in a rain garden to suck up some of that extra water, we still want it to look pretty, but can you make it look pretty and make it functional and benefit the environment? That's our challenge.
Over-fertilization is a major problem because when that runs off and gets into the river, winds up doing what we call eutrophication, which is the blooming of the algae, which then eventually will kill off a lot of the other organisms. And since we're part of the Chesapeake Bay watershed, all that stuff winds up in the bay. And right now, that's one reason why they're doing the major upgrades of the sewage treatment plants in the Chesapeake Bay watershed to keep all that nitrogen and phosphorus, which are the fertilizer components, out of the water. Nature can correct itself to a degree. I always use the river after a big rainstorm. It gets silt in it, and eventually that falls out as the river slows down. The air clears itself slowly but surely. What doesn't is soil. It takes a long, long period of time. Every part of the environment has a tipping point, and when you get past it, it's very difficult. Then we have to go in as humans and help it.
I teach botany, which I always push the point that when you're creating a landscape, you're creating an ecosystem. And you need to develop it in a manner that's, sustainable, just like a natural ecosystem is. One of the biggest problems with our planet today is the exotic pests that are brought in. Our ash trees are dying, our hemlocks are dying. That's all from, Asian pests that are coming in. It comes in a lot of times in shipping materials. We can go back to chestnut blight. It took the chestnuts out here in the early 1900s. That came in on a load of logs. Dutch elm disease. All the problems that we have with invasive plants like ailanthus, the tree of heaven, purple loosestrife, Japanese knotweed, they displace native plants, and it's a real problem. And we need herbicide, we're committed to it, but you have to do it responsibly, and it makes it tough. And with the insects the same way, you're putting pesticide out there. It's not like the old days. Back to my father, he used to do summer work, whitewashing barns, and for an extra couple of dollars, they'd put DDT in it, to make sure there's no flies in the barn.
There are, outside invaders, exotic pests and insects and challenges like that we've got to we got to deal with, and we have to look at the bigger picture. We have to look at, well, why is an insect there? Why did that insect attack that plant? Why are those weeds in the lawn?
Oh! There's so many of them.
if you don't have a background in some science at least, you're not going to be able to do anything to help the environment other than vote and maybe donate money. Those are always important too, but if you're going to get a job in a field that's going to help the environment, you need to know all the basics of science.
You know, a lot of what I do it truly is science. I think about that decision of not being a botanist, but the things that I have to do are more than just throwing a seed in the ground. You know, with greenhouse culture and nursery production as well is a very intensive thing, managing all the parameters of growth, particularly fertilization and understanding pruning, to say nothing of pest control. I go through my old notebooks from when I was in school, and in my greenhouse classes, the recommendation for controlling pests was pick a day of the week, and spray number 1 is this week, spray number 2 is next week. And it was this, you know, kickapoo juice of 4 or 5 different pesticides, and you would spray whether you had bugs or not. The plan was keep them from ever getting started. Today, we spray only as a last resort. You use the least toxic control measure first. And so that requires a heck of a lot more diligence than just mixing up a spray and applying it preventatively. The other thing I do is math, because numbers, no matter what you do, numbers are important. If in a turf grass class, fertilization is one of the biggest things done in turf management. And you can either just sling it out there, or you can actually figure out what you need and not waste that resource, not pollute your environment. You watch the bottom line for the business as well. So even just, you know, simple math skills to be able to keep track of things like that.
Everything we do today will affect what happens next year, the year after, and 100 years from now. If we do our job well, then we've impacted future generations in a very positive manner.
Times have changed. Yes, industry used to be the big bad guy, but most of them are very pro-environmental and really do want to work with making things better. It's just finding the technology to do it. And there's a lot more dialogue on between industrial people and people who care greatly about the environment to try and solve some of these problems.
If you're concerned about the environment, we have a real opportunity to make a difference. As we increase the energy efficiency of systems, we are decreasing resource use and decreasing pollution.
It's certainly going to be different with the new technologies of energy, solar and wind and fuel cells. I remember reading about Dick Tracy was in the cartoons, and he had a phone on his wrist. Wow, that was really something. And I say, we got him. So, and that happened in my lifetime. And yeah, I'm an old man, guys, but you know, you're going to see it too. Things are coming your way, and you need to be ready, and you need to continue to learn.
You want to leave your mark in the world, but you want to leave it the right way.
If you have passion for what you do, you always want to know more. You always ask, what if I did this? Or why does this work the way it does? And everybody has to find their own way. And there's lots of ways to make a buck. If you have passion for what you do, it makes it so much easier.
When you're in high school and you're thinking about a career, you could think about what's just gonna make you a lot of money. Or you could think about something that you're going to be happy doing for the rest of your life. Every day when I get up and I come to work here, it's something I really love and enjoy doing. And if you don't find a career that you love and enjoy doing, it's just gonna be watching the clock, how fast can I go home and end my day? So it's really important to follow how you feel and to find something that is true to you, to who you are. I am comfortable with who I am, and this is my perfect fit. I am meant to be here. Makes the rest of your life so much easier.